Whether you shoot in full manual mode, full auto mode, or aperture or shutter priority, one thing that all photographers need to know is how to use their exposure compensation properly. If you don't know how to do that, then you're not really in control of how your image is going to look. Okay, so your camera is incredibly advanced and smart. It is really good at metering what's in the scene. Most cameras have a bunch of different metering modes that you can choose from, but the camera does not know what it's looking at. If you're pointing your camera at a polar bear in the ice or a black cat on a black rug at nighttime, your camera doesn't know. All it's getting is an amount of light off it. Way back when they were working out the first light meters, they went through and basically got a whole bunch of pictures which were correctly exposed, threw them into a blender and figured out that 18% gray, like that, is, the average of all shots of what you should be aiming for in terms of the amount of exposure in the shot. And as an overall general rule, it's good. But if your camera is looking at something really dark that should be really dark, it doesn't know that. It's still going to try and make it back to an average 18%. Likewise, if you're shooting someone wearing flowing white linen on a beach and you want it to be a high-key shot, your camera doesn't know that, and it's going to still try and bring the whites back down to a medium 18% gray. To demonstrate that, let me bring in Tina and take a shot that I want to be low-key, a shot that I want to be high-key, and show you how the camera is trying to bring them back to be the same thing. So here's a shot of Tina with her bright white skin, her bright white dress, and a reasonably bright background because it was in direct harsh sunlight. That's about the exposure that I would want for the shot, but that was actually telling the camera to go to almost 2 stops over what it thought was correct. If I left it to the camera's meter, that's the exposure that it thought would have been correct. Conversely, this one is what the camera thought was correct, shooting her in a black dress indoors in a really muted scene, which to my eye is about 2 stops over, which there is what I compensated for and got the shot that was what I was looking for and more reflected the scene to my eye. Okay, so to correct that, every camera has it, go into your exposure compensation and dial it up or down accordingly. If the camera's trying to make your shot brighter than you want it, then you need to put the exposure compensation down. That means if it should be darker than that 18%, turn it down. You might want to turn it down 1, 2, 3. Some cameras offer up to 5 stops of compensation. Likewise, if you're shooting out on a bright sunny day or it's a shot that should have a lot of white or brights in the shot, then you want to push it above 0, so +1, +2. It will need a little bit of variation to figure out which is which. The exact, examples I gave of a polar bear in the snow, you might be at +4 or +5, and a black cat at night, you might be at -4, -5. But play with that. Whether you're in auto or shutter priority or manual, if you leave it to the camera to be bringing it back to what it thinks should be the middle, a lot of the time it'll be right, but a lot of the time it's going to be wrong. So learn your exposure compensation, use it, and your images will start to look the way you want them to look. There's no correct, but there is how you want them to look. Get your blacks black, get your whites white. Hope that helps. Jump over to thatnikonguy.com, get involved with the community, sign up for our mailing list. I'll see you soon. Whilst you're here, check out the Take Control of the Light workshop series. You can also check out my 1000th video, an introduction to the community forum. Next up is my general advice on upgrading your camera equipment. Next up is my thoughts on photography as a creative lie. Next up is rules of photography, what they are and whether or not you should follow them. Here's a link to my How to Shoot a Wedding playlist, one of the most popular things I have up on YouTube. Next up is a link to my The Business of Photography, all different tips and techniques for running a photography business. Here's a video on storytelling I made with Tina Yong. And finally, here's a video on how to get sharp shots at slow shutter speeds. Thanks everyone, please subscribe, I'll see you soon.